Before I start, this is my question. 4160
Mhm.
Tuesdays, is that how one should say it, or is it 4160 Tuesdays?
I say 4,160, but
Okay,
I will answer to anything. I answer to mispronunciations of Sarah and McCartney, and
okay,
Americans all say 4160 because they think it's the street number. So,
okay. I'm going to say it your way then. That's fine. Okay, I'd always wondered that, so thanks for clearing that up. Okay, here we go. Hello everyone, welcome back. So it's time for another episode of my most loved fragrances, and we've had some great guests on the show, and I've really got a really special one today because it is the perfumer based in the UK, Sarah McCartney. Hello, Sarah.
hello, Dan.
It's great to have you on the show. Very excited to find out about your 5 most cherished fragrances. So just to inform anyone who may not know, the format of this show is that we have a perfume celebrity, I'm going to call them, and they share with us their 5 most cherished or loved fragrances. So fragrances which have had a big impact on them in their life for whatever reason. And so I guess it's a little mini This Is Your Life with a fragrance theme. And we've had quite a few YouTubers and people like that, but now I'm very lucky to have had some brand owners and perfumers on the show, and of course Sarah McCartney is one of those. So for anybody perhaps who's unfamiliar, the brand is called 4160 Tuesdays, and it's a superb indie niche fragrance house, which I really highly recommend. A fantastic range of fragrances, which we'll come to soon. I think very affordably priced, and Sarah is the perfumer for all of them. And I will link in the description below the company's website and some places where you can buy them if you're in the USA as well. So Sarah, really thrilled to have you on the show. And I'm going to kick off just very briefly, which I'm doing with all my guests at the moment, just to ask how you've been getting on with the current difficult situation with the pandemic. How are things where you are, which is, I believe, in London, isn't it?
Yes, where we are today, this is our studio, London W6 in Hammersmith. So we are permitted, after the first fortnight of shock, we were permitted to come to work because we're in manufacturing. So because we make everything here, so everything stopped. And then our Korean distributor said, well, things seem to be getting better here in Seoul. Can you ship us some stuff? And we thought, well, don't see why not. So we came in and bottled it, got ready, and first short while it was just Nick Randall and me, my husband, who's joined the business, and it was just us. And then we contacted Lucky Scent and said, well, we're here. Do you want some? And they went, yeah, might as well. So little things gradually started growing up again from what appeared to be this like barren ground. 2 of the staff have had COVID. They're young and they're fit and they got over it and they're cool. And I've been trying to keep my nose away from anyone who might possibly breathe the thing on me because, you know, the loss of sense of smell problem. But really, mustn't grumble from our point of view. We've had interesting work in from PR companies who would have done something live and can't. Had to think, you know, outside of the box. So I've got to say we've been really quite fortunate.
Well, I'm very glad to hear it. That's really good news. And yeah, of course, if you do a lot of your selling online and stuff, at least that's something that has been able to continue. So that's really, really good to hear. And you obviously come through unscathed, so that's good news. So yeah, let's hope for a better 2021. Things are going to get better soon, I think. Okay, so I'm very genuinely intrigued to find out a few more things about you before we get into the 5 picks about your fragrances. So your brand 4160 Tuesdays started when, please?
10 years ago.
10 years. Oh wow!
It just worked out. It's our unofficial birthday. The limited company went live in 2012, started trading under that, but 2011 was when I set it up and we started actually selling perfumes to people. So yeah, whoosh, it's been 10 years of making things, and another 8 of workshops. Actually, that is one thing that has been affected, of course, is that we couldn't run live workshops.
Yeah.
So all that had to change completely. So we've moved them all online. And apart from having to refund one hen do, which was like, but then they couldn't come, so what are they going to do?
Yeah.
And a couple of people saying, but I paid for a live workshop, I'm coming in. You're not. Dodged a bullet there, probably. Apart from that, we've everything's gone online, and I actually quite like it. So, but yes, since first selling our first perfume really was 2011, so we're going to have a party at some point.
I should hope so. That's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, congratulations on the 10th anniversary. And so I'm going to just rewind even back a little further than that then. So the question I ask every guest is, how exactly and perhaps at what point did you become more than averagely interested in perfume?
Well, probably when I was actually employed by Lush.
Right.
Because for 14 years, I was Lush's head writer. So probably people would have grown up reading the Lush Times and the Anti-Pamela column to how to improve your life by the judicious use of perfume. That was me. So I very quickly had to get up to speed on what smelled of what so that I could describe it properly. So I actually started out really as a perfume writer, a fragrance writer.
Right.
In 1996, that was.
Right.
So, yeah.
Fantastic. But going even further back than that, then, were you always really a bit of a fan of perfumes?
I was a fan, but I was one of those people who had one.
Right. Okay.
And then used it up.
So more of a normal level of like me before I got into this. I had one, and that was it. Yeah.
But then we're talking the 70s, you see. People didn't have more than one thing. You didn't. You had a perfume, it was a bit luxury. So I was, I'd be given things that I really can't stand to this day, like honeysuckle from Avon.
Right.
Because my mother kind of thought that the smelling of a flower was all right, but smelling of a perfume was a bit tarty.
Oh,
so
okay.
That's hence why I named Tarte Snickerdraw in honor of my grandmother, who sort of very northeastern. Oh, you don't wear shiny shoes in case anyone can see your pants reflected in them, or what, you don't wear perfume, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
quite judgy. So I had to free myself of that. So I'd go and explore. I'd pick a new one when the bottle ran out, but I always had Diorella. So that was my thing for a lot of years, was Diorella, and then it disappeared.
Okay, right.
And then it
all
came
right.
back. So yeah.
Okay, right. So really, it was through the Lush thing where you were the writer there, but just but back before this, the world of online stuff exploded to the level that it has now with perfume. You were doing it kind of really early days, really mid-90s, if you're doing it back then. So that's sort of how you got into the industry. Then the last question about your life in general, before we get into the scents, how did you actually get into making your own perfumes? I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're mainly self-taught. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mainly am, although I tend to say, nerd that I am, that I learned from people who weren't in the same room as me at the same time. I learned from books. I learned from people who weren't necessarily alive at the same time as me. But I didn't just buy a load of stuff and bung them all together. I only owned 200 books on essential oils and cosmetics. So what happened was that I wrote a novel. Did you know about this? I
didn't know that. Sorry, Sarah.
Well, curiously, no. Why would you? It's not been published. It's here somewhere. I'm sure I've got one. Right. But anyway, I self-published it.
Right.
I was lazy. It's called The Scent of Possibility.
Right.
And it's about a perfumer who solves people's problems by making them a bespoke fragrance to remind them of happy times. So I didn't know I was going to be a perfumer at all. I thought I was going to be a writer. So I wrote this book, and the perfumer is called Unity Castle, who still has a Twitter account and is quite rude about things. But So Unity was making fragrances for people who came to her to discuss their issues, and she'd give them a fragrance that they could wear to remind themselves of how they could improve their lives a little. We're talking, West London first world problems. We're not talking about serious stuff. Write about what you know. But I described all of these fragrances, and I thought it would be really nice to have an appendix that said, "Oh, this one smells a bit like that. This smells like this." So I went out perfume shopping like an idiot, because I'm one of those people who, in a perfume shop, if I engage someone in conversation for half an hour or so, I feel morally obliged to buy something. So my perfume collection at that point just went nuts. And because I talked to an awful lot of people, because I couldn't find what I wanted because it didn't exist. So then I thought to myself, well, I'll have a go at making it, because I'm from a household of people who made stuff. My mother made all my clothes. I would knit stuff. We weren't allowed to buy records when we were a kid, but we could buy the sheet music, and we were allowed to play it on the piano.
Right.
With that kind of a, well, why do you want to go buying stuff when you can make your own? Eh?
Right.
So, you want music? Join a band. That is just very, very practical family that started off with no spare cash. So it's like, well, I'll make some. So that's actually what happened, is that I started making the fragrances that I described in this book. Because niche and indie wasn't then like it is now. Now you can find something that smells of almost anything.
It's exploded, absolutely, but it hadn't at that point. So wow, that's a brilliant summary of how it happened. Now I get it. That's fantastic. Can people still find that book online? Is it available?
They can, and what I'm thinking of doing is designing it a bit better and getting it printed a little more beautifully, because then we're talking 11 years ago still, and self-publishing was a bit shonky, so it is a bit of a state, but you can buy it from lulu.com. If you buy it from them, I get, I think, like £3. If you buy it from Amazon, I get 80p. So
well,
and they print you one and send it, so it's downloadable.
Brilliant.
It's not bad. I say it myself. It's not bad. I used to do it for a living, so it's all right.
I'm going to go and get myself a copy. I think it sounds like a perfect coffee table book for me, and I'm going to check it out. All right, fantastic. So that is a lovely summary of how you got to where you are today. And we're going to talk a bit, I hope, about at least one of your fragrances in the upcoming chat. But just to say thank you, because you did very kindly send me recently a bottle of Waft from the Loft, which was the fruit of your collaboration with the two great YouTubers from the channel Waft from in London. And it is an absolutely superb fragrance. A lot of the 4160, I'm going to say now, so I'm sorry, but
do it.
A lot of the perfumes that you make have quirky names, Tarte Nicodror being a good example. And again, Waft from the Loft, you might think, well, it sounds a bit odd, but it's a fantastic, beautiful, or complex kind of incense-y fragrance with just a very, very appealing niche scent. And if anyone, and I know a lot of my viewers will be, if people watch Wafts from the Loft and know the kind of thing they're into, it really is a brilliant encapsulation of what you might hope for from them. And there's an eau de parfum and an extract available in various different sizes. Loving that one. And before that, I just own one of yours at the moment, and that's the lovely Ealing Green, which is a very charming kind of grassy, floral green scent that is perfect for we've got an early spring day today, and just that sense of optimism is in the air, and this is like the perfect fragrance. So another big hitter from you that I'll just mention is Sexiest Scent on the Planet was one of your kind of greatest hits, I would say, and that is a beautiful vanilla and it's sort of fresh and vanillic all at the same time, and beautifully versatile. Is that a fair description?
I say very versatile, yes, and it's made from precisely 4 things. I've published the formula so that people can all make their own if they want. So it's I like a bit of a revolution. There's too much secrecy in the business, so I just told everyone what it's made of. The weird thing, though, is that people came back and said, "I don't believe you. I think you've put other things in." Like, make it, see what happens. You'll find it's exactly what I've told you. But it's quite odd that people would then just assume that I was doing it and lying, which
Right.
of course I really hate. I don't like that. The people who have tried it, taken the formula, made it, and gone, oh yeah, believe me. But the others kind of, no, why would she do that? Why would she give away her formula? Like, well, why not?
Very
Yeah,
candid of you. Yeah, that's a very bold move. And yeah, but I don't understand why they would think there would be any reason not to be truthful. But yeah, how strange. But very, yeah, I mean, this is, I think it's fair to say, viewers, if you're not familiar with Sarah McCartney's work and your public persona, you are a very different kind of person in the way that you do quite a few things in unconventional ways. I think in a good way, and you're sort of cutting through some of the BS, if I may say so, that probably goes on in the world of haute perfumery. So it's kind of refreshing, I think. So that's great. Okay, now it's time for me to get to the point after 15 minutes, which is to ask you about your 5 fragrances that you've selected, any order that you want. Please tell us what fragrance number 1 is.
Okay, fragrance number 1 then. I accidentally mentioned it already. This is Diorella by Christian Dior, created by Edmond Rudnitska in 1974, I think. And this is a vintage bottle which I got in a shop in Margate, and it says,
oh, wow.
Yeah, Demonstration vente interdite. It's a tester.
Oh, brilliant.
So, yes, not for sale, nicht verkauflich.
Wow.
Hence no lid. But and I was a bit worried because obviously it's no box, but it still smells great. And it's 70s. It's the old bottle.
I'm familiar with that old Dior design. Yeah. A huge fan of Edmond Rudnitska. Of course, he also created one of my favorites, Sauvage, the men's fragrance. I've seen you post some stuff about that actually as well, from 1966, which is brilliant. But what is it particularly about this one that made you want to include it?
Well, I'll tell you what happened then, which is like, this is my O-levels fragrance. So we were on holiday in Scotland in the long hot summer of 1976, and I know most people watch, you won't have been born, but it was amazing that summer. And the British government actually put out advertisements suggesting that to save water, you should shower with a friend, which is, I know at times it's different. I know times were different. People were much more hippie, but I saved up my holiday money, and on the way back we went to a department store in, I think it's Dundee, and the previous year I'd saved up for a Dior lip gloss. And this year I wanted, this year on the way back from Hull, because we lived in northeast of England, so we go to a beach in Scotland for summer. And I wanted a perfume. And I met this lovely woman, and she let me smell a few things, and she said, and you know, at that age you've got to love the thing. The more you smell, do you find the more you smell, the more you come to, they become more balanced. You hate fewer, but you adore fewer. I find it, unfortunately, it almost goes, oh, that's a really good one, I wouldn't wear it, it's really good. Whereas in my 30 years ago, I'd smell it, go, I can't wear that. And I almost miss that feeling, the extremes of feeling that about perfumes. But she sprayed this one, and she said, they say it smells of flowers, but I always think it smells of ripe peaches. And of course, late after that, a number of people said, oh, no, it's tuberose. And of course, it turns out to be Gameron decalactone, which is peach smell. And so she was right all along.
Oh, wow.
And she was so nice to me, and she treated me like a proper grown-up. And I bought a 30ml bottle of Diorella, and that became my scent. So it was what I'd save up for. And you couldn't get Dior in the Boots or place like that. You had to go into the carpeted part of a department store, and it was relatively so much more expensive. I mean, this would have been, I think this was £16 a bottle at a time when you could buy a house for £10,000, so this was
Yeah.
a lot of money. This one it's still got a CFC spray when they were pressurized. So if I sprayed it, it would just keeps going.
It's
It's
an
quite fun. Want to see it?
atomizer instead of a vaporizer. Yes, it's pressurized. Yeah.
I think it's a vaporizer. I think anyway. But it's
Okay.
if I kept going, it would fill the room, but
Yeah.
just a little bit. It does. It goes.
Yeah. They're different. Yeah.
The funny thing is that I spray it now, and people say, "Oh, that smells really old."
Oh,
How
right.
dare you? But it's a proper full-on chypre, and I just smelt it and said, "Oh, that happened."
Magnificent. And yeah, I mean, people have to remember, I was actually on the way in 1976. My mother was expecting me, so I've heard about that hot summer and how uncomfortable she was. But yeah, people have to remember back then, and even well into the 80s and stuff. Designer fragrances were the niche fragrances of today. It was very much more a luxury good that you didn't stumble across every day. And of course, you couldn't go online and surf through thousands of different options being discounted and all that. So it was a whole different ball game, and it was more of a special thing to experience a perfume. And I think you could probably tell sometimes in the boxes and packaging that they came in then, they were quite, my dad used to have Givenchy Gentleman. It was a very sort of solid looking package, and sometimes they came with leaflets and things like that, didn't they? That it was a bit more special than it feels now. So, and I mean, as a youngster back then, it would have been even more so for you. And yeah, they were relatively more money, weren't they, to buy? Yeah, absolutely. So we didn't have that luxury that we have today to try everything under the sun, just by popping into our local department store, or even as you say, Boots, or even Superdrug. So all right, brilliant choice. I love those old, the old bottle Dior's. I've got the vintage Eau Sauvage, and there's nothing better than walking into a sort of slightly old-fashioned chemist and seeing something you thought you'd never find again. That they're sort of almost like, oh, you won't want that. That's gone off. That's a tester. I've had the same experience, and it's one of the great thrills, isn't it?
Yeah. It's actually, this bottle came from that weekend that I met you in Margate, when Izzy Ostrom and I came down to do an event at Dreamland, and you came over. I think. Did you come over to that one?
Am I imagining Claire? I think you maybe met Claire. I think I met you only at the award ceremony.
Awards.
Yes, not 2018.
That's weird. I imagined you there.
Yeah. Well, no, I know I wasn't. But I remember Claire from the Smurfy Girly channel.
Yes.
I think was there. Yeah, because we both live in Kent, so it's not a million miles away from us. Yeah.
I just assumed that somehow magically in my memory you'd been there. I didn't meet you then.
But I have met, well, it's easily, the two occasions are easily confused. But yeah, we did meet, just to tell the viewers, once at the Art and Olfaction Awards 2018.
And you were standing next to Claire, and she introduced. So I've mixed them up in my head.
No, she wasn't at that. She was on holiday that day. So you've never met us together. No,
I've never seen you at the same time. No. We're gonna Okay, you're going to have to cut out all that where I show myself as a complete idiot. No, you can leave it in. I don't mind.
I will. Yeah, no, I don't think it matters. It was a good fun event, and exactly the kind of event we hope we can go to again soon. Which you were there giving out an award or presenting, and I just somehow managed to get. I gate crashed and was trying to get as much free champagne in as I could before the thing started. So it was a great fun event, and I hope we can have some more of those soon. All right, I thought that was a lovely first pick. What's choice number 2, please?
Yes, so I went from my citrus chypres, because Diorella is famously, supposedly, the best women's fragrance, best men's fragrance accidentally launched for women, and Eau Sauvage was the best women's fragrance accidentally launched for men.
To quote Luca Turin, isn't that what he says? Yeah.
Was that it? Yeah.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we not get Diorella anymore?
We can, but it's different. What happened was that around that time, things used to be just stopped, discontinued, and then if people kicked off enough, they might bring them back. So there's been a bit of a tradition of things disappearing, coming back. But
Mm.
so at that time, my thing, I would wear I wore trophée Lancôme, which was supposedly for men.
I've got that. I've got that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
and
Love it.
Choc de Cardin. So there were quite a lot. Citrus sheepers were very popular, and
Yeah.
some of them were supposedly for men. Eau de Rochasse, Eau de Roche, Eau de Lancôme, all of these lovely things. And these days, people would be surprised, I think, to think that some of the masculine ones were, or some of the women's ones were for men. But I mean, they were very different. And but then I went from that. I jumped to Poison, which I have here. I have a 1986 bottle of Poison, which I was tempted to put in today, but I went. I still deal, but I went rich 80s, more vanilla style, ambery base. You know, it went with the colors of the time, and so but I chose to represent that era actually with my bottle of Tocard, which is Tocard by Rochas, and this is one of the original first batch. It's actually, I think it's
what a bottle!
Screw top. Yeah.
Oh wow!
It's the best. It's just, and that cap, you know.
Look at that. Yeah.
It's proper postmodern.
Right.
And it is a sort of beautiful rose, vanilla, strawberry, very early gourmand, but
brilliant.
sort of the style of the 1920s and 30s gourmands, which people have forgotten existed. But there was it's very. It seems to go very gourmandy at the same time as life is not very cheerful. So I know where that, like the big financial crash, he suddenly goes, oh, let's all wear vanilla perfumes. So anyway, but this one was actually 90s, but it seems to be what Rochas do is, at the time, they would wait until there was a certain trend established, then they'd go, we're doing one of them, boom, and they'd come in and do it 10 times better. So they wouldn't be first with anything. But so Tocard is just, I mean, one, you just, but I started wearing this, and this is when I was working at the Guardian newspaper, not as a writer, but in the marketing department.
Oh, right.
I used to organize lots of events and travel the world, and I was in and out of duty-free shops all the time. And I had the permanently unpacked suitcase, running everything from student freshers fairs to language fairs and literary fairs, just wandering around Europe.
Wow.
So
good job.
This became my. It was actually. It was. I got to that awful point where these days you think, how could you even say that? But it's like when I was quite pleased that I didn't have to go to an airport that month, and it's just so ungreen and it's so blinking privileged, but when you realize you just want to stay at home for a weekend, and now we're beginning to appreciate not having to do that. But so I was queen of duty free, and I bought this from a chemist down Holborn, not this bottle, but and another one just knocked me over with its gorgeousness, and it's kind of fruity, rosy, rich balsamicness. So I really swap sides completely from my rather very dry chypres into that, and I just thought this is just the epitome of that era.
Yes, it makes sense. Okay, I think it's a good, interesting point you make there, that some of the brands, because I've got quite a few early 90s masculine releases, which very much have the 80s powerhouse style in things like Balenciaga Pour Homme and Moschino Pour Homme, which came out at the beginning of the 90s, but they're very much backward looking to exemplify the great sort of stuff that was going on with Koros and Antaeus and things like that in the 1980s. And yeah, it's like you say, a fantastic decade that I can, you know, but despite being a kid, I have a pretty good memory of it. I've got a few old Vogue magazines from the 80s, and I love flicking through those and seeing adverts for things like that, with the ladies with the big hair and the shoulder pads, and everything was very opulent and decadent. And these fragrances like Poison, different smell, but and that one are in your face. And it was just a very, very interesting and different time. But yeah, at the time, it all seemed very modern and good. So lovely bottle. I'm going to check that one out. Maybe I can find one on eBay. That's another one of my hobbies, looking for stuff like that. And the design of the bottle is worth having it just for that, isn't it? Yeah.
I know. And there's another one called Toccadilly, which is more difficult to find. That was the flanker, which is the same shape, but it's that was my first sort of disappointing flanker to raise. It smelled nothing like. That's when I discovered what a flanker was.
Yeah.
That I thought they'd be kind of the same, and this one, the other. But you know, I still have it. But yeah, this is it's either the end of the big in your face 80s, or it's the start of the fruity floral 90s. But it's, yeah, I should put it back in its house.
Yeah, look after that one. I should imagine they're hard to come by. Can we get a modern version of that if we want to?
Yes, you can. And if you look carefully, there are quite a lot of that style still around. So that one is this is pre-2000. And you can just about tell with the ingredients lists.
Yeah, that's it.
But after that, it came out just with another label and slightly different box, but almost the same. And there's another one at the moment now, which is I haven't smelled, but I think it's pretty much the same, actually. It's all right.
Great. Okay, yeah, depending what the ingredients are, some things stand up really well even when they've made them to fit in with today's rules, and other things suffer more. So yeah, don't think everything has to be that you find the vintage or nothing. I've got some that are still, you know, I take the modern version any day. So yeah, check that one out, guys. What's fragrance number 3 then, please?
Well, it is Écume de Rose by Les Parfums de Rosine. So yeah, exactly. Now
I've never heard of it.
So bad. Well, good. Okay.
Ooh.
So right, this one's signed by Marie-Hélène, who owns the company. Well, this is great. If I can tell you about a whole company, the Parfums de Rosine. The brand is one of those Phoenix brands that the French are very good at delving into and resurrecting. So Rosine, it was owned by Paul Poiret, who it was a designer sort of on the level with Chanel, but he lost all his money and, you know, died tragically. But he made Le Fruit Défendu, which was at the time the most expensive perfume ever. And I smelt that from the Osmotek collection, and I was completely knocked out. It's an intense fruity floral, very much of the the 1990s kind of style. And I hadn't realized that fragrances smelt like that 100 years ago. So anyway, he disappeared, you know, crash and burns, didn't survive World War II, as many brands didn't. And then Marie-Hélène, whose surname I will remember at some point, bought the brand and set up a whole fragrance company devoted to fragrances which all smell of rose a bit.
Okay.
So there are female ones and the male ones and everybody's ones, and they've now got some oudi ones and another range of very light ones for the Far Eastern market. But this one is a kind of seaside salty rose. I had the mint one and the chocolate one, and roseberry one's called, because I wanted to make a fragrance called roseberry myself, but she got there first because Roseberry Topping is just outside Redcar where I grew up. So, but this one is a it's an aquatic. It's
Right.
a very early, sort of slightly Calone influenced light rose.
I see.
And as aquatics go, this is pretty much my favorite. I'm going to be just covered in perfumes. I'm going to spray them all.
Yeah, it's
But
great if you yeah. So this was, you've got to forgive my ignorance, as many viewers will attest. There are certain areas, particularly of well-known female fragrances, where my ignorance is shameful. So roughly when did this one get released? It was a resurrected brand in France.
Good question.
And just roughly, I mean, it's been around. Are we talking
We're talking
90s?
2008-9 probably, I think.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it's a much more modern.
Quite new.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's very vintage style. In there goes the packaging.
I love the bottle as well. Yeah, really nice.
Yeah,
and that's very classy. Yeah.
Yes. And I was just going to say, do you know? Have you been to the Jardin du Palais Royal, where Serge Lutens is in Paris? There's a big green square in the Serge Lutens shop. It's famously there. But this is just along the road.
I think okay, all right, okay. No, I haven't seen them there. I think I've been to the yeah. Okay. Well, it sounds like a very interesting brand. Are they sort of affordable? Are we talking designer prices or high-end niche kind of? Where are we?
We're talking low-end niche prices.
Okay.
I mean, I don't buy any high-end niche fragrances, because if I've got that kind of money, I'll just make something and buy the kit. I just, sometimes people come here and they go, well, where's all your niche? Like, what would I want that for? I just thought I don't do it. I've got one.
Exactly.
But I really love roses. And I just like the work that she does so much. The perfumer on this, I know, it was man who lives in Brighton, and I'm getting to that age where I could describe exactly what he looks like. François Robert.
Okay.
Yeah, François Robert. So he's based in the UK. He made a lot of these. This was 100 mils. I think you can get them at Liberty. Or you certainly could. Maybe they've stopped. I think they're about 80 and 120 for 50.
Oh, lovely. That's all right, isn't it?
Just not even as expensive as the poshest Dior. And I'd much rather they had my money. So
yeah, Dior don't need it. Yeah, that sounds really good. And I love the bottle. And I think absolutely the sort of lower priced niche stuff is where so much fun can be had. I could name a million, but things like Hubigant, Parfums de Nicolai, and there's things that are not outrageously expensive. Of course, in a more artisanal indie world, brands like yours, so much fun to be had out there. And you're often only spending a smidgen more, or maybe even less, than certain Chanel or Dior stuff. So these are the brands that it's great to find out more about. So thank you, lovely choice. So we've had three, we've got two left. What's your fourth selection, please?
My fourth one is by the way, they do masculine rose. There's a nice like tweed rose one.
Oh, lovely.
To explore.
That sounds up my street. And so that one, I guess you would say probably, I'm sure we both agree, anything can be worn by anyone, but that one perhaps leans a little bit more to something we would expect to smell on a woman more so, do you think?
Probably. Yeah. But on the other hand, it's got nice bootsy feel to the bottom of it, and because of the aquatic notes, I think it would smell gorgeous on a man. I'm tempted just to find a man and spray it on and test, but you can't these days.
I know, Soon enough.
Nobody will spray 2 meters. Yeah. Number 4, I have chosen Bois Farine by L'Artisan Parfumeur.
A great brand. Yes. Yep. Tell us about that one then, please.
Well, it smells like biscuits. What's not to love? It's okay. What's it say? Mystérieux et familier à la fois, bois sorcier, poudre de fleurs. I'm just showing off. Okay, so it's both mysterious and familiar at the same time.
Right. I got that bit. After that, you lost me. Yeah.
Phrases that mean nothing
Yeah.
Bois sorcier, like a wizard's wood and powdered flowers.
Right.
But I mean, it means farine is flour to cook with, baking
Yeah.
flour, not. But yeah,
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Okay.
just
So it smells of
it
biscuits.
it does. It
Yeah.
smells
Yeah.
of digestives. I think without the chocolate.
Right.
Possibly get a proper diggy and you
Yeah.
dunked digestives. I'm sure that's
Oh
not what
man.
they were aiming for, but I don't
Yeah.
care. It's what the result is, and it's just so charming. It's like digestives served on a carved wooden platter with tea. Um,
Right. Does it
so
smell a bit of tea at all, or it's just
well,
more the biscuity thing?
for me, it does smell mildly of tea. I mean, but then you've
Hmm.
got tea for two, which is supposed to be their more tea-ish one.
Yep.
But
Yep.
yeah, maybe it's just my association with biscuits. But
Right.
it's it's can it be so biscuit with not too much sweetness? It's not.
Yes.
It's
Okay.
it's kind of not gourmand, but still biscuits.
Yes.
Um, I don't really. I'm not
Well,
that
if you
keen
say
on listing
digestive,
notes. Yeah.
no, I'm with you on that. I think if you say digestive biscuit, certainly British viewers will understand very well. I'm not sure what the Americans have that's equivalent to that, but
No.
it is a very a
Is it?
McVitie's digestive
Yeah.
is one of our famous delicacies over here, and we do
It
we do
is.
like to dunk. I'm not sure that Americans do this either because we like to dunk them in tea,
Yeah.
and that's quite an
Yeah.
art because there's if you leave it in too short, then the middle bit's still hard, but there's nothing worse than it flopping off because you've got
Mhm.
distracted and left it in too long, and
Yeah.
you end up with a great big bit of soggy biscuit at the bottom of your teacup. So there's
Yeah.
there's quite a fine art to that and a perfect
Yes.
level of saturation where it's a very
Yeah.
nice delicacy, I think, isn't it? Yeah.
It's perfect and it's very important and it's the kind of thing which, as you can imagine, my family did not approve of
Oh,
dunking
of
the biscuit
course. No,
because it's
right.
like
Yeah.
no,
It's a bit
it's not
bit
what kind of
common,
thing
isn't
you
it?
do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't do it in polite companies. So
Right. Yeah.
it, yeah, but yeah, it is truly lovable. It is
Right.
a teddy bear of a fragrance. This one, it's
Hmm.
yes, I think it's. I don't know why I'm so fond of it. I just discovered L'Artisan Parfumeur one day. I just found the shop and thought, that looks interesting, and walked in.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were just popping up in that. And it was a time when I ended up sort of living by myself and exploring the world on my own and doing all the things that I'd been sort of told that I couldn't do. I was in a bit
Mm.
of a relationship that I'm glad to be out of. This is a long time ago now. It's 25 years ago, so it's a long
Hmm.
time.
Yeah.
But to find yourself with total, complete, you get up in the morning and think, what shall I do today? Ah,
Yes.
everything. I was freelancing, so I was
Yeah.
freelance a writer, and some days that meant I didn't have to go to work. I could, if I'd done it, I could go to a museum like on a work day, and
Yeah.
I was discovering how to organize my own life for sort of the first time ever.
Yeah.
And I found Artisan Parfumeur. So these early ones, they have, well, mid ones. I have a great fondness for the ones that I found at that time. I've even
Got
got a
it.
bottle of vanilla, so I'm saving that up till it's worth £1,000 on eBay.
Oh,
But
is that now a discontinued
yeah, it's
gem? Right.
gone.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
vanilla one. The rose one. Voleur de Rose. The ones
Okay.
round about that time, I got seriously into them, and I've got quite. That's my. I got a big collection of all the colours, and then the
Right.
ones I didn't have, I snapped up in TK Maxx when they redid the packaging. So
Yes, a lot
result.
of them they did suddenly turn up there for a while,
Yeah,
didn't they? Yeah, yeah.
I
I'll tell you what one I
know.
absolutely love, and that's Traversée du Bosphore. My French
Oh,
accent not as good as yours, but it's Turkish delight basically, isn't it? And it means it's about going across the Bosphorus
Phosphorus
River, and
River.
it's of
Yeah.
course Bertrand Duchefort is the perfumer, isn't he? And that
Yes.
is exquisite. A really great
Yes.
house again, and that one's I think I like what you're saying there. That it smells like, it sounds weird, doesn't it? Biscuits, but I have smelt some sort of slightly gourmandish things with that type of theme, and that they can be absolutely delectable. That one sounds really good, so I'll check that one out as well. And I would say with these gourmands, certainly one like that, anyone can wear that, a man or a woman. I know a lot of guys are into their gourmands, so I think anyone watching will do well to check that one out. All right, lovely description. Now, so I think we must now have one left, and I know that you said we're going to do one from your brand, which I always insist that anyone does if they have a brand. So just before we do that, I just wanted to ask you, because perhaps some viewers haven't tried your fragrances. Is there any kind of way you would describe the theme or the kind of perfumes that you try? I'm sure there are many, but what kind of thing do you try and do when you're creating perfumes? So you would say the 4/160 Tuesdays way, the ethos of how you do it.
The reason for being what we are. Oh, I just thought, by the way, biscuits, to circle back a little. It would probably be an oatmeal cookie if we were talking to the US.
Got you. Yeah.
With not very much sugar in it. I'll go for that. So I once did have to sort of explain, like, what is our reason, and of course it started off with me making those fragrances for the book, which was, can I help people encapsulate a time and a place that made them feel happy? And pretty much what I've tried to do since then is that. So, for example, I mean, the Waft from the Loft is the actual organ loft in a 17th century Christopher Wren church from the 17th century of London, where the two guys make their films. So that is the time and the place where they're happy. Ealing Green that you have there, probably on their recommendation, because that's one of their favorites. That was Midsummer Night in Walpole Park next to Ealing Green. So what if you start off having a picnic and then you fall asleep as the sun goes down? So that's the feeling of that one. So what I did on my holidays is a day.
I was going to say, yeah,
that sort of thing. It has to have something generally where I'm thinking, what is this place, and how do I want people to feel, and what person, or was it me there even? So they tend to be, I say they're for slightly adventurous people. But there always has to be a reason or a person or to encapsulate a moment generally in somebody's life.
I think that's a brilliant way of putting it. There's one, isn't there? Is it Mrs. Something's Chocolate Shop or something like that?
Oh, Over the Chocolate Shop.
Sorry, right, okay,
There's Mrs. Lost Made Me Do It, but Over the Chocolate Shop. That was from friends of mine. They have the house next to the bus stop right in the middle of Highgate, and it wasn't very expensive because downstairs there was a dry cleaners, and then the dry cleaner sold out, and they sold it to a chocolate shop. So my goddaughter lives above a chocolate shop, and so I was trying to get the smell of this Belgian chocolates sort of wafting up, which was far nicer than when they used to get all the dry cleaning fumes. So
I bet it was. Yeah,
I mean, literally the smell of living over a chocolate shop.
They lucked out there. Then that sounds So that's it. They tell little stories. A lot of the perfumes, and they have the names like that, and they're kind of quirky names but very charming. And just to show people the aesthetic there is very nice. Would we call this? Am I right in saying it's a sort of Art Deco stroke 60s chic kind of thing that goes on with the patterns there? That's what I'm calling it. Is that right?
It's what is it? I mean, originally I think my designer friend, Paper Aeroplane, used to be my yoga student, Lucy. She thought it might be nice to try and show bubbles. And then I said, well, perfume doesn't really have bubbles, and she went,
true.
Oh, but once we'd done it, I thought it was just so lovely. And Poshpack, who print them, they just say, you use more ink than anyone else. I hadn't thought of that, but once.
True. You have.
Somebody said they thought it was the phases of the moon and it was devil worship, but people have such strange imaginations, don't they, Dan?
They do. I wouldn't have thought the moon I can get, but devil worship. it wouldn't spring to mind, but the thing that it's got us thinking and talking about it, and that means it's there's something good going on there. So yeah, I really like the aesthetic of these as well as the scents. But good. I haven't actually asked you what the scent is. I says, yeah, thanks for this great overview of what you're all about. So which one of the many lovely ones have you selected?
Okay, I chose Drive Them Wild.
Oh, right.
Which this was created for London Craft Week 2019.
Okay.
And what happened was there's a feature every year at London Craft Week. They choose a craft, not every week, every year. So for London Craft Week this year, I was invited by the journalist Christopher Stocks to be part of this. London perfume companies, would we make fragrances specially for the event?
Right.
So, some did, some didn't. And I mean, one of them is Penhaligon's, which is owned by a multinational Spanish company, but we'll extend the boundaries to London craft perfumes now, won't we? They're quite funny. At least they didn't actually ask Joe Malone London, but so Penhaligon's was there, Ormond Jane was there, Paul Schutz, and people I've forgotten. Oh, they'll come back.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Experimental Perfume Club. Okay. So we had to choose somebody. It was set in the Beaumont Hotel, which is, if you come out of Selfridge's front door and head south, across the road, past the shit stall, with all the rubbish on it, past that, you come to a hotel on the right, big Art Deco building. It used to be Selfridge's car park.
Right.
It got bought and turned into a hotel. So they've kind of faked the Art Deco history of the hotel.
Oh, okay.
And invented Johnny Beaumont, who supposedly used to live there. And the place is covered in photographs and paintings of his friends.
Right.
But they are real, which is Johnny Beaumont's not real, but his friends all are. So
interesting.
I had to pick,
I assume this was pre-lockdown, obviously.
Yeah, 2019.
Oh, 19, so I was thinking, sorry, yep.
Yeah, last year's was all online, but this was, it's the very definition of postmodern, I think, to have a 1930s car park turned into a hotel that you pretend was owned by somebody who never existed, but his friends are real. So, and there's a room full of like rogues and reprobates, but people who were notorious in the 1930s, and we had to pick somebody to base a fragrance on. So I picked two, but I went through them all, and there were some terrible lives in there, film stars who'd committed suicide or been murdered, and so I picked two people who'd had long, outrageous, happy lives, and had been amazingly creative. So I picked well, this one, Drive Them Wild, was for Dolores Del Rio, the film star, who was Mexican. And after she sort of
while you're doing that, I'm going to Google this person so I can see it. Hang on. Keep talking and just. Okay. So if you wonder what Dolores, I'm not familiar with the name. Dolores. What's the surname?
Del Rio. So D-E-L and then R-I-O. So Dolores of the River.
Oh,
so she was said to be the most beautiful person in Hollywood.
Yes,
amazing.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah, it's all black and white, so we're really going back a bit here. Yeah, okay.
Oh yes, this is 1933. We're talking about the 30s.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep. Brilliant.
If you find the picture of her dressed as a leopard, it's just outstanding.
Right. Okay, I'm going to do that.
So I had her, and I had a man called Lord Berners, who was also very outrageous in the 1930s. Oh yeah. Yeah.
There we go, exactly, viewers. That'll save me pasting it in afterwards. Yeah, thank you. Oh, well, lovely. I've just discovered a new icon there. Yeah.
Yeah. So
sorry, continue.
She was this amazing star in California, in Hollywood. And then when she became a little too old to be a star those days, she went back to Mexico, and she pretty much established the Mexican film industry.
Wow. Okay.
So she never played a Mexican. They put her as, she'd been Indian and all kinds of things in the films, but she was never actually playing a Mexican.
Right.
So
she was Mexican originally. She was from
yeah,
Mexico. Yep. Okay.
yeah, from quite a smart family. She loved her gardening, and
Right.
there was also this piece I found about her that said that Dolores del Rio sprayed perfume in her hair to drive men wild. So that's where I got the name Drive Them Wild.
Brilliant. Love it.
And you know, like they say with the Frederick Malle fragrances, he lets them use whatever materials they want, no matter how lavish. Well, for this one, I let myself do that.
Right.
And I just thought, you know, stuff it. It's going to be expensive. Because I don't like making expensive fragrances, but I do like using expensive materials, which means that I limit myself to quite a narrow profit margin, which is not a long-term strategy for staying in business. But
True.
I've got to keep thinking this through, but I just can't bring myself. I can't do the whole, oh, this one's £1,500 and I'll have a holiday. It's not in my nature.
Yeah.
So, but this one actually costs £195 for a 100ml bottle. And that's like, as high as I've gone. But it's got jasmine and osmanthus.
Say that again. Yeah. How much was it?
195 for 100 mils.
For 100
which is
mil.
still reasonable.
Okay, well,
yeah.
That's still very reasonable for a niche fragrance. But just goes to show that a lot of yours are really, really accessible. But that's not outrageous. But that's because you really just did not hold back with the expensive stuff you put in it. Okay, and is it going to drive people wild?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gorgeous. I made it with materials that were all available in the 1930s, apart from changing animal musks for synthetic musks, obviously.
Yeah. Okay.
And I used spices, and I wanted to make her Mexican garden, because she loved gardening, as well as driving people wild, and her Californian garden. So I took oranges and orange flower absolute and osmanthus and jasmine, and I don't really do white flowers. I normally hate them.
Right.
But I put it with cocoa and coffee and vanilla.
Wow.
And then stuck a chypre base on the bottom. That doesn't sound very elegant, but it's probably like the finest thing I've done. Yeah.
Really? Okay. Right now, it's the thing you're most happy. I mean, you could have chosen anything. So right now, this is the one you are like most proud of, maybe, to share with us.
I made it. Yeah, I made it 2 years ago, and I mean, it was interesting on like the press day and all the other perfume wandering around, and a chap from Florist came. So I think he just went, "You made these?" It's like, "Yeah, I did." He said, "Oh," and I think the people just were surprised. I think Burnt Cedar Rainbow Doves was the other one that I made for Lord Berners, and that's a bit more in my style, but very unusual. It's like two separate perfumes joined together. But this I'm very pleased with.
All right.
Yeah.
You've got me interested now. Yeah. All right. It sounds really good.
I'll send you a sample, Dan. Yeah.
I would love that. I would be very. I'm genuinely very intrigued to try that one now. Unfortunately, spraying it in my hair is not going to. It probably just end up running down my face in my case. But the idea is a lovely notion, and I love the idea that story. What I think is great about your stuff is that you have these really nice stories. So you mentioned a bit of blurb on the back of another brand's packaging there, and like you say, sometimes they just have to say something, but it means nothing. Like this enigmatic fragrance is both beguiling and mysterious at the same time, all that kind of thing. But yours, you've got a real, genuine, unpretentious story for each one, which is rather a nice thing, I think. So, yeah, I think that's really good. And for anyone else, maybe they don't want to dive in with that one. If you could recommend one that might be a great place to start of your sort of more regular priced stuff as a good representation. I mean, I'm thinking maybe Sexiest Scent on the Planet would be a great, a good option. Any other one that you might say, give this a go? Get a 30 ml. They're not expensive.
The things which people come back for and are, I mean. Okay, so at the moment, probably well, both sides of clouds is it's then again it's in this area. Once I'd gone up to
Oh,
that price.
sorry.
That's all right. They're after you. Yeah, I so the more I do have a Sexiest Scent on the Planet, definitely start there. You can almost scarcely not go wrong with it. But
Yeah,
I know.
agree.
There's a new one, newish, which I brought out this year. I meant to bring it out last year, but nah. So it's sort of slid out, and it's called Temptation.
Right.
And it's actually the bottom half of Take Me to the River. I made an accord, and it ended up being called the River Temptation Accord. And it's all the sexy things. So the Ambrox and the Isoe Super and the musks, and I made it sort of as a skin scent, but it's got some top note musks in as well. So you can layer it with lots of things like Sexiest Scent, and it's just it's delicious. So it's quite powerful. So yeah, you probably can't go wrong with that.
All right.
If you
So
want an adventure, yeah, I know. Or what I did in my holidays, because knock your socks off with something bonkers.
I haven't tried that. That one's got a really good reputation, and so yeah, Sexiest Scent and Temptation. You say would be good. So for viewers who perhaps often like some of the things I tend to recommend, I would highly recommend Ealing Green, which has it has a slightly distinguished feel, a little bit of green bitter accords in there, grassiness. I mean, very, very unisex kind of fragrance. But yeah, if people like sort of the summer stuff, I often recommend. You might also want to try out. I really do highly recommend Ealing Green. It's a lovely one. Right, Sarah, thank you so much for sparing me the time to talk to me. It's been a real pleasure to learn. Again, every time I do a perfumer, I learn different things, and the stories are great. So it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much. We will look out for what you're up to in the coming year. And I'll put, as I mentioned before, we'll put links down below to the places where you can buy the fragrances and to your main website. Any good place to follow you? I don't know how much of a social media person you are. Is there any Instagram stuff, or if they want to kind of keep up with your daily output, what's the best place to go to?
We do have Instagram 4160 Tuesdays perfume. I do have 4160 Tuesdays is mine as well, but I can't get access to it. It's a long story.
Oh, right.
And so nothing happens. So, but yes, 4160 Tuesdays perfume. If you're interested in how perfumes are made, then you could look for Scenthusiasm, and so it's like Enthusiasm but with scent on the front.
Scenthusiasm. Yeah, I'll link that. Is that where where would people probably? Well, maybe it is going on now online, but if people want to take part in the events that you have, because you do things where you teach people how to make perfumes, it's a big part of what you do. Where can they go to? Is that on your website?
It is there. It's in 3 different places, just to make things interesting for people. But I have a Patreon, which we know that we love Patreon, and Patreon is that's my Scenthusiasm slow scent school. So every month I give people formulas to work on. So if people like pottering about a bit but don't want to dedicate their whole life, there's the films there. There's how to do things and improve your skills one on that. And then Scenthusiasm.school is, I can give you all of these things. But yeah, if you come to the website, 2 weeks time we'll be doing spring school, which would have been here, but now everybody around the world can join in, and we send them big parcels of stuff, and we all work on the same formulas at the same time, so then we can have a meaningful chat about them. So it's changed completely, but it works out like that.
Well, there are pros and cons, but at least, as you say, it's now open to people who can't get over to London to attend. So there are some good things about that. Okay, that is absolutely fantastic. Thank you again. I hope that it won't be another 3 years before I bump it into you at some kind of event. But we'll keep in touch. And viewers, thanks for joining us. That's the end for today. Remember, whatever you're doing in life, let's project. Bye-bye. Okay.